Bobbi Shrivastav, co-founder, chief product officer of Benekiva. And this year's theme for Triad Developers Conference is on investing in digital technology. And what we're going to do in this session is we're going to look at 3 companies that have a presence in our community and are transforming their industries and disrupting and improving traditional processes. So the 3 companies that are represented in this panel today is first my company, Benekiva, and we are bridging the gap between insurance carriers, policyholders, beneficiaries by claims transformation and asset retention. I also have Ampergy. Ampergy grew from the belief that people want to be great every day. Their team works best when they focus on each other's strengths. And then we also have Swipe-By, and they're transforming the curbside process by capitalizing on dine out demand, differentiate against delivery, and then take back control of takeout. So in terms of introductions, why don't we each go? So what I would do is, Carl, why don't you go first, Jennifer, and then I'll go last. Cool. An introduction about you and your company.
Cool, yeah, thank you, Bobbi. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. So I'm Carl. About myself, I'm originally from Berlin, Germany. So that's where I'm born and grew up. I came about 7 years ago to Winston-Salem to study at Wake Forest University, graduated there 3 years ago, and around that time started the company, which is today Swipe-By. We have been through our fair share of pivots and kind of adjustments. But what we're doing today and what we're doing now since over a year, well, with product development since over 2 years, is we turn any restaurant into a virtual drive-through. And we do that with the power of fully automated curbside pickup. And what our technology is, we have consumer-facing apps for Android and iOS where customers can place orders, guests can place orders at restaurants around them. They pay the same price as dining in. And then we have an extensive backend, extensive processing where we then obviously process the orders, we do payment, all of that stuff. We send the order to the restaurant. And the real magic happens when the customer arrives. We geofence their location, let the staff inside the restaurant know that the customer arrived outside. So they come out generally after a minute of arrival, bring to the guest, to you, the food, hand it through your window, and you take off again. We launched last May, so May 2019, have seen, launch in Winston-Salem, have seen some solid growth. And then obviously COVID-19 happened. And we are one of the few businesses, I would say, who've seen explosive growth because of it. Because overnight, before curbside was something, it's, if you targeted parents with kids buckled up in the car, if you were in a suburban market where you had a lot of consumer traffic and you want to compete with the McDonald's and Chick-fil-A around, you had a real drive-through. But with COVID-19, overnight, every restaurant thought about curbside and every consumer thought about curbside. So obviously that has contributed to our growth. We're now in 25 states in the US. We are just launched in Germany, so we are even international. And we're actually also really much extending our product base from obviously the core heart of curbside service, but we're doing things like now we do predictive preparation times to make the experience better. We are going into online ordering. And so a lot of cool things ahead, but that's in a snapshot is what Swipe-By is and how we turn restaurants in virtual drive-thrus.
Jennifer?
Yeah, hi guys, thanks for having me. My name is Jennifer Biggs. I'm the CEO of Ampergy. Bobbi did a great introduction there. Ampergy works with manufacturers to help them help their employees be the most continuous improvement problem solvers that they can be. And the way we do that is we help companies incentivize the daily actions and gamify the daily work on the manufacturing floor. We work with a lot of local companies here in the area, and we help them track their manual processes, their machine processes, basically any work that happens in their business that they have to do to sell a product or to make a product. As an example, we work through an iPad app in the hands of an employee as they go about their daily work. And every time they complete a task, we reward them with these points and this dopamine kick, if you will, of here's how much value you added to the business. So that companies are not pushing top-down initiatives, but instead they're rising the tide of performance. And most of the companies that we work with are trying to do this already via paper and Excel, and really struggling with maintaining those systems and processes just by the time you've got the data in and analyzed it, it's too late to do anything about it. So as soon as someone inputs the data on a device, we broadcast it across the manufacturing plant so you can see how you're doing real time. And those are some of the ways that we're helping manufacturers in the area.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Carl. And everyone, very quickly, Bobbi Shrivastav, co-founder, chief product officer of Benikiva. A little bit about Benikiva. We're a technology platform, and we're designed to help specific problems in the life and annuity space while providing a beautiful customer experience. So we've created a SaaS platform, and our claims module offers carriers 100% digital claim process from end to end. We connect to multiple systems across an organization to offer that one single claims platform. If you go to an organization right now, they're in lots of different systems. We've seen upwards of 16 systems to process one claim. So we centralize that into one experience, regardless of the product writers, rules, or even the underlying company that the policy was underwritten. And our mission is to really bridge that gap between that insurance carrier, policyholder, and beneficiary. So I would like to know, I think we covered a little bit of this, but from your organization's perspective, and this time I'll start with you, Jennifer, what are you currently doing, and why do you think in the manufacturing space, why is transformation needed?
Great question. In manufacturing, a lot of people are kind of working in silos. They're working in their own cell, and they're trying to optimize for themselves today. And the only way to connect the pieces is the old adage of manage by walking around. But you can only be in one place at one time. And unfortunately for a lot of operations leaders, that means that they're in a manufacturing plant from 6:30 in the morning until 7 p.m. because they have to make the rounds and they have to kind of micromanage the process. And the big gap there is information is not flowing from people's brains to everyone else's brain. Information isn't free in that environment. It's only what you can see in your work cell. So by simply freeing the information of what's happening right now, there's a lot of consistency that can happen and synchronization across the supply chain. And then once you create I know how my peer is doing and I want to do better than my peer, then you start seeing this flywheel effect of everyone getting a little bit better every day. And if everyone in your organization improves 1% every day, that turns into huge gains for the corporation.
No, thank you for sharing that. So coming back to food, which is a little bit different, your market is different maybe from even some of the audience that are going to be on this, listening to this, but we wanted to make sure that we heard perspectives, not just from the B2B, but also from startups and what creative solutions they're bringing to the triad. So on the food industry side of the house, you're totally disrupting that process. So can you share a little bit about why that's needed?
Sure. I think, when COVID has done a lot here in the news recently, but restaurants, I mean, if you take out McDonald's, right, if you take out Yum Brands and so on, they're small businesses, and some of them are even medium-sized businesses, right? They employ a lot of people, but in the end, their core product is food. They bring it, they make it, and they bring it to the customer. So the entire idea of digitization, of going online, going mobile, is something that has left behind for quite some time. And if we look at, from a highest level, one of the first things, how is takeout done, right? How do you order? And I think 43% of the market, and with COVID that might went even up, of takeout orders are placed via the phone, right? Still today. And that's that's part of the problem we're solving, but that's just across the board. And then when it comes is, what you're always looking for is, if you have wait staff, if you have people, you want to create operational excellence, right? And what you're looking for is to drive efficiencies by serving as much customers as possible. And when you had normal takeout, when you had normal delivery, what you have is you have a person going in the restaurant saying, hey, I'm here, coming to the counter and saying, I want my food that I ordered on what stream whatsoever before. And the same delivery driver, right? The Uber Eats driver, the DoorDash driver. With curbside service, there is this kind of new complexity that the customer is not actively seeking the waiter saying, I'm here. right? And what you have seen a lot now probably with COVID is that everyone does curbside. Then there are signs outside with phone numbers, which says call the restaurant, but the restaurant has 2 phone lines, so both of them are busy. So you're sitting outside trying to call them. No one knows that you are there, then the line is busy, and so on. And so, we did this obviously before COVID, but now it's even more important. We just automate that entire experience. And what our goal is just to create an experience where you as a consumer, number one, have a super fast and easy way to interact with the restaurant. And the easier it is, the more you spend, right? So that's relevant for the restaurant. There's upsells. If the easier you go through a process, the easier it's for you to buy food. The more food you buy, the more online shopping you do across the board in e-commerce. And then obviously on the other hand, we want to do all of that by then reducing the operational stress at the restaurant, again with technology. In our case, that it's mostly geofencing that we're doing. And we have seen actually, the entire idea of geofencing, knowing where your customer is, knowing where someone is in general, whether that's again in a manufacturing, if it's in a factory, if it's in a normal business, if it's in an office, is something which becomes more and more important. And we are just covering a really small subset of this world of knowing where people are for curbside service and for takeout.
Oh, great, thank you. And I'll just share, on the life side, on the insurance side, I shared in my introduction, up to 16 systems to process one claim, which if you think about it, there's a lot of room for error, because and if you look at life insurance in particular, it's very paper driven. So what that means is there's room for issues, there's rooms for, it just takes a lot longer. When you think about claims, especially on the life side, it is really a customer experience issue. And that's why disruption and transformation is needed. Because if you give somebody a horrible customer experience during the time of claim, you're giving them the money, you're giving them a horrible customer experience. What do you think? Will they ever think about your brand if they're buying products and services? And we have research that showed that when they get a check, 96% of the time, that money leaves that institution and goes somewhere else. That means they're never able to retain that beneficiary as a customer. So that's why when we're looking at claims processes, especially, a lot of people often say, oh, that's back office, but there is a customer experience element that becomes very critical. And that's why, we want to transform that so that organizations can have the ability to retain assets at the end of the day. So I oftentimes hear, startups have great ideas, hard to implement. How do you take that idea and actually execute it in a real world scenario in an organization? Carl, you probably have the same challenges, especially on the POS side of the restaurants. Jennifer, you're in manufacturing companies with legacy system. So share with this audience, how do you actually go about implementing your solution? So Carl, I'll start with you and then Jennifer.
Yeah, so the current reality is we don't, and we just make it a kind of a plug-in, right? So we make it how do we implement? Number one is we try to take everything off the plate of the restaurant as possible, right? So if it comes to small things like menu upload, account creation, account servicing, payments, all of that kind of stuff, we take care of, and we make it as simple, as easy as possible. And then exactly, we're running to the problem, right? A lot of restaurants run on legacy systems, and then we can plug into those systems, and that's what we are working on to make the process a little easier. But one of the things that we have seen is one of our core components, the arrival notification, is just something that these systems can't handle. From the oldest Oracle micro solution to the newest Toast Upserve solution, which are some players in the POS space, none of them have that capability of taking care of a customer arrival right there. The entire journey stops at payment or after order is received, right? That's when these systems end. And so what we have done though, when we built all of this, we did a lot of research. We worked with waiters, we worked with restaurant owners to build an interface and to build our product to just fit in as good as possible in their daily operations, right? And then the other thing is we just make it that it plugs in, right? It doesn't connect, but it fits in the operational process. And in the end, there's a lot of room for improvement, and it's one of the key challenges we are working on, is how can we optimize that integration piece even better. But in the end, we're solving such a problem, and we're creating so much value that the not perfectness, which is the reality of the non-implementation right now, is not as bad, or doesn't outweigh the win that they get from working with us. But for sure, it's our really big learning was we just talked to the customers. We had the customers being part of the journey. And then part of it is, I think, finding the right customer, right? As if you have a technology and you want to work with a client who has like a 1,000-year-old system, but believes everything needs to go through the system, might not be the right partner for us, right? And so that is how we navigate it, right? We're trying to become better. We're trying to work with all the crucial partners. We're trying to find the right customers for whom it's the fit, right, for us and for them. And then we're trying to solve so many pain points, that the pain points we are not solving, and one of them is integration in the restaurant space for all takeout platforms, that is not as bad. But as you know, that's kind of the general approach we're taking on that matter.
Jennifer, what about you?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind here. As you heard, we're people-centered. And so when we built our product, we built it to be easy for the end user. And that means that it can't connect into all the pieces of equipment, because it has to be delightful for the user. And so when the user is adding, hey, I did this task today, they're just adding it on a device that we can show up with, an iPad that we show up with. So there's no HMI that we need to integrate into, or the big thing in manufacturing is IoT. And whenever we are talking to a prospect, they're assuming we're going to come in with a bunch of devices and a lot of engineers to spend a lot of time coding and integrating and running cables. And our target market in small to medium manufacturers, they don't have the capital to do an investment like that. So we're priced more competitively for what they need. And we're much more flexible when we don't integrate into everything and plug into each piece of equipment. Think a piece of equipment that was purchased in 1972 and one that was purchased in 2018 has very different needs. And you walk into a manufacturer and you really see the whole scope of their entire manufacturing journey on the factory floor. So for us, implementation is just as simple as showing up with an iPad that has a Wi-Fi connection and training someone on how to use it. And once we do that, and we have the right standards kind of out of the ERP system, we can be self-sustaining. And I see there's a lot of places to go where we could be integrating, but Bobbi, as you well put there, the costs have really been much higher than the reward for integrating into those systems for our clients thus far.
No, that's a very good point. On our side, we have the opposite issue. We're even though we have a front end solution, we're very back office because it's claims. Mm-hmm. So from an implementation perspective, how we work with our customers, which are insurance carriers, is we take a very crawl, walk, run approach. And I think a lot of times, I'm probably talking to a lot of IT folks out there that have sat through strategy after strategy conversations, prioritization conversations, where everybody wants everything. And how do you prioritize that? What's the most valuable piece? So when we do our implementation, we really take it as a proof of concept is what we call it. So we're going to actually do a discovery process, which we go through a design thinking sprint process with them, do a lot of lean work so that they could see what that current process is versus what that future looks like when it comes to their organization with claims. Then we give them a proof of concept to say, okay, this is what ideal state looks like. And, we fake all the data, but we actually show them their process in a newer way. From that step, we then go into a pilot. And this is where we share with our carriers, less integration, the better. Because right now, what you're trying to do is get feedback and value from your end user, from your internal staff. And then we go into full-blown implementation. and think about implementation as let's crawl, walk, run, right? Let's not integrate all 16 systems or 80% of your claims coming from this admin system, but you have a closed block of business on another side. So that's how we've approached our implementation, but we've had to create a very flexible layers of integration, because we do integrate with mainframe. So flat files, we had to absorb flat files. We've had to have, we're API first, web services, but that's something that our industry demanded. So before we came to the market, we had to come up with a way to build out that integration layer, so that we can actually serve for our clients. So good examples of how greenfield technology versus back office, right? And two different implementation paths that can take. So share with our audience, how have organizations that have partnered with you, how have you helped them with their digital efforts, digital transformation efforts? And Jennifer, I'll start with you this time.
Sure, yeah. So one of our local customers is Pine Hall Brick, and they have 4 manufacturing plants. 2 are in the area here, and then 2 are in Georgia. And one of the things that we have really helped boost them on is they were tracking what I'll call like surface level data. In general, we know how we did yesterday, and we know what the big problems were. But what they found is they were only able to improve so much with that surface level data. And so we have been able to track to the minute all of the issues that are happening in their plants. And they told us that they have improved by 20% efficiency in their manufacturing plants, because they had already gotten the low-hanging fruit, and now they really needed to get down deep into the detail. So our customer can sit in his office in Winston-Salem and see exactly how every single area in every single manufacturing plant is doing on his big screen. And then he can immediately click on that and say, what were the top losses yesterday, last month, last year? And he can make trends and Pareto analysis. And that has been huge gains for his business. Every single person that's interacting with an iPad there knows what value they personally are bringing today, and if they personally met their goal today. And he told me that it has been transformative in their business results, but also transformative in their people culture as well.
Oh, that's so powerful. Like when you have data that oftentimes organizations struggle with, how do I get real-time data? How do I get data and make sense of the data? So what you're doing in the manufacturing space is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
What about you, Carl, on the food side of the house, food industry side of the house?
Again, I mean, it's, we are behind a lot in this industry. So, we help restaurants and our clients from a simple thing like having the menu outside of a Word document and printed out in the restaurant, right? Having it actually digital, explorable, having it, customizable and so on. Like that's, would be one of the baby steps. But otherwise, I mean, it's we help restaurants, compete in the mobile and in the online ordering world, and especially taking it to mobile, right? Consumers are more and more on their smartphones. There is a lot of solutions out there that do web ordering, or you can have it, somewhere a PDF uploaded on your website, but really bring the experience to mobile first, bring the experience to again, we do curbside and pickup, but bringing a mobile first experience, allowing our customers, to be really fast with discounts, be really fast with, and also data analytics, like knowing how much they're selling, when are they selling it, to whom are they selling it, customer data, which they're not before capturing, right? They're capturing it through our system. That is a lot of the things that we are doing, but really we are taking some of these restaurants from, there has nothing happened since 30 years, right? Like really, there has been no iteration. And then we have some who do some things, and, they might have an okay, like POS system, they might have an okay HR system, but when it comes really to the takeout component, or to the, reaching people in their homes, reaching people for takeout, for mobile ordering, for online ordering, it also has not happened, right? And this is kind of really where you see the discrepancies. You see Walmart, you see McDonald's, you see Chick-fil-A, you see their apps, right? Their mobile kiosks and so on. You have never seen that at a smaller mid-market chain of like 100 locations or the mom and pop. And we're really there to help them with that. And that's also where our product moves now, is to help them, when it goes to kiosk, when it goes to website ordering, when it comes to like deep data analytics and really understanding the customers and so on. Like that's where we really help them. But it's, it's not continuous improvement. It's really kind of taking some of them from the Stone Age almost to the 21st century.
And one story I will share on the Benikiva side, I think this is my favorite. So we were working on implementation with one of our carriers, and we had configured a rule, like an intake rule. And one of the pieces they wanted was, if you find this information from the benefit, from the claim benefit, it needs to be subtracted. But this data was somewhere in their legacy system. So we were able to grab that and kind of create a calculation to show an accurate claim benefit. What we learned is, for us, that was like a 2-minute rule, like creation of a rule, because everything is configurable. What we learned is, by us creating that rule, it saved this one carrier $4 million annually, because we weren't able to calculate it before, because it's kind of like when you call in, you're like, what's my benefit amount? And you give them X. And then you later found out that that's not X, it's X minus 500. So now think about times that by 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 claims that you could be doing for some of these products. That adds up. That added up for that customer, $4 million every year. So that's like one of my favorite stories. We can do, we have efficiency metrics, but to me, when you're saving hard cash, that's just, that's why I get excited about what we're doing with Benikiva. Awesome. So we're gonna wrap up with one of my favorite questions. And so what is one piece of advice that you would give organizations that want to expedite their digital efforts in their industry?
I can start. I mean, I think, one of the first one disclaimer here is, right, I come from the startup world, and then I can tell I'm a little younger, so I have not spent in a lot of legacy organizations a lot of time, because I've been on this earth for quite some time. Anyway, so I think I think there's one general rule of thought, and that is, one of the things, when we looked at curbside service, we didn't look in the restaurant world. Like, we looked at Walmart and at Target, which I don't know if these companies stand for innovation, but those guys were, heavy investing in the click and collect market way before McDonald's did it, way before it, some of the big chains did it. And again, mom and pop was behind significantly even more. So I think, first of all, to expedite, sometimes you need to know what is out there before you can expedite something. And I think a lot of people are quite often in the thing, well, if there would be something to expedite, they would, or if an organization would know what to expedite, they sometimes don't know. So I think, looking over the industry horizon to see what happens in other close related industries, to see opportunities, to see, what are they moving, and then adapting from that or learning from that, to first understand, what is important for my industry and what can we steal from other industries, from other areas in the market, and can bring that to our industry. I think, that's one of the first ones. And then I don't know if that really applies to big organizations, but I think, it goes in line always, right? As a startup, you look for mentors. As a startup, you look for people who have done it before. As a startup, you look for strategic investors. As a startup, you look for, employees that are hungry, that either have done it before or that have triple the work ethic to get it done. And I think that applies for a big organization, right? You want to get the right leadership in that potentially has done it before, maybe from a different industry. And then you want to get the people working on it who are really excited about it and potentially have a deeper cost than just an hourly salary or monthly salary. So again, that's like kind of taking learnings from the startup world and thinking they would apply to, bigger type of organizations in a certain industry.
I think that's awesome. That's a great answer. Because I think organizations have a lot to learn from startups. I'm in the, like, my advice would have been to organizations is start to start to get involved in startup ecosystems, like in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, Flywheel, Winston Starts, Launch Greensboro. There's so much startup activity, and figure out how you can do, you want to hear what they're doing, could you pilot something with them? Because you're going to bring such fresh perspectives from people like, Carl, you've not been, how do I say it? You've not been indoctrinated in corporate, right? So you bring such great fresh perspectives, but that's what's needed in some of these organizations to really expedite their digital efforts. And I think startups bring just that fresh, young energy, to looking at problems in a different way. Jennifer, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest advice to, manufacturing companies who are just like restaurants who have nothing digital, my advice to them is learn fast. Start with something. I love the Ben Akiva approach of let's start small and let's grow from there. But if you really can say what is most important and let's get that right, everything else is icing on the top of it, and you really can focus your efforts. And I think that iterative process of let's do something really, really well, and then let's do something else really, really well on top of it, has been the biggest success driver I've seen for companies that are starting to look at dipping their toe in a digital transformation. Transformation doesn't have to mean everything goes at once, but it means that you're taking a step in a process to be on the other side of digital.
Well, thank you so much, Carl and Jennifer, for our virtual panel for the Triad Developers Conference. I hope the audience finds our conversation valuable. And once again, if you are investing in digital transformation, look at the startups that are in your communities and look at ideas, and you'll be surprised what new energy, new ways of looking at problems can do for your organization.